How a pathology lab became a cornerstone for cancer care in one of the poorest countries in Africa. A CAP26 speaker gives us a sneak peek. Plus, new discoveries about the fighters against drug-resistant bacteria living in your garden soil. This is Path News Network Daily Edition from the College of American Pathologists. I'm Elizabeth McMahon. It's Wednesday, July 1st. Imagine building a pathology lab from scratch in one of sub-Saharan Africa's poorest countries. It's a challenge CAP member Dr. Yuri Fedoriou and colleagues from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill took on in Malawi, a country of about 18 million people, where about 7% of the population is HIV positive. Today, the vision that started in 2011 in an abandoned building is now the country's only public pathology lab with cancer research at its center. In Malawi, persistent levels of HIV are fertile ground for HIV-related and associated cancers, such as lymphoma. Dr. Fedoriou says the UNC cancer program has grown into a hub for clinical studies, diagnostics, and care, but there are limitations.
In Malawi, we have just fewer therapeutic options. And so getting to a diagnosis between Burkitt lymphoma and another kind of large B-cell lymphoma, it's that distinction isn't necessarily clinically relevant. And that's why we have another research component to understand the biology and the differences of the diseases and we're working on that as well. But certainly from a diagnostic perspective, we try to bin it into categories that are clinically meaningful with the therapies available.
Dr. Fedoriou, Global Cancer Pathology Director for the UNC Institute for Global Health and Infectious Diseases, will share the cancer program story at the CAP26 plenary session on October 5th in Las Vegas. He says collaboration with Malawi's Ministry of Health has been critical to the program's success, which includes training new generations of clinicians and researchers.
There's now a medical school that opens its first residency at the site of our laboratory now. And so we have essentially an MMed program, or a residency program in pathology that is now in its second year. And that is something we're, again, very proud of.
When he's not in Malawi, Dr. Fedoriou checks in for weekly telepathology conferences with 3 Malawian pathologists who run the lab. Eventually, the pathology program will become an autonomous operation, though its research will serve patients far beyond sub-Saharan Africa. He says this remarkable chapter of his career has given him new perspective on the power of pathology.
As a pathologist, the impact of pathology is so easy to lose sight of in the States sometimes. And there it's like that, it's the centerpiece of cancer care. And so that's true in Malawi, that's true in that African continent, which is enormous. And I think that's something that I think has been the most kind of exciting, is seeing the impact on outcomes, directly seeing the impact on outcomes for the work that we've done.
Recent discoveries in a common soil bacteria called streptomyces are generating promise for new antibiotics that can act against drug-resistant bacteria. The most recent study, led by researchers from McMaster University in Canada, reports on a megacluster of genes found in streptomyces bacteria. The cluster's 5 compounds, 4 antibiotics and a protein, target different stages of the production of biotin, or vitamin B7, which is essential for bacteria cell growth. It's much harder for bacteria to develop resistance when antibiotics attack multiple parts of its metabolic process. In a related development, University of Illinois Chicago scientists have introduced an antibiotic called manicomycin, also found in streptomyces. Manicomycin targets a bacteria's protein-making ribosome and stops the process. Both sets of researchers emphasize there's a lot more to be learned and improved before these discoveries can be used as medicines. The studies were published in the journal Nature. When's the last time you freshened up your CV? And no, LinkedIn updates don't count. If you're on the job hunt or just need practical pointers on how to tailor your CV to the professional path you're targeting, the CAP's July 14th webinar will help. The session will emphasize how employers and reviewers interpret CVs and which experiences are most valued across practice settings. Participants will compare and contrast CVs prepped for academics, private industry, and clinical settings, and learn about mistakes common on each. So dust off your document and register for the CV course under the calendar of events on the CAP homepage. And finally, how can women climb the leadership ladder in pathology? Carving out a clear niche is important, says CAP member Dr. Christina Maggi-Galuzzi, who's also president of the United States and Canadian Academy of Pathology. In a new interview in the Pathologist magazine, Dr. Maggi-Galuzzi shares her ascent to national leadership, noting that those who advance often do excellent work in essential areas of a field that get attention. Being intentional is key, she says. Be strategic about saying yes and no. Choose commitments that align with your long-term direction, and remember that leadership often involves moving from doing the work to shaping how well it's done. And just like being a new parent, Dr. Maggi-Galuzzi says you may not feel fully ready to take a leadership role. Growth comes from being slightly ahead of your comfort zone, she says, learning in real time and allowing yourself to evolve into the role rather than waiting for a perfect sense of preparedness. That's all for today's Daily Edition. Be sure to check the show notes for more information on today's stories. Got a story you'd like us to cover on the Daily Edition? Write to us at stories@cap.org. We're back at 5 a.m. Eastern for another episode of the Daily Edition. I'm Elizabeth McMahon. Have a great day.